What's going on YouTube? Q back here again with another video for you. Today's video, I'm going to share how I'm able to get in and out of my car so fast. So I was asked this question a couple of times recently, so I figured I'll share my experiences with you all on how I get in and out of these cars so quickly. So if you're new to the channel, I've had 27 cars so far, and I normally keep my cars, I've kept cars as short as 3 months, and the longest cars that I've kept recently was about a year and 4 months. So that's going to be the topic of discussion for today's video. So let's hop into it. So everybody knows when you generally buy a car, it loses a lot of value once you drive it off the lot. And the way things are going right now, it can lose a whole lot of value or retain a whole lot of value because this market is kind of wacky right now. But generally, I believe they said it loses like 30% of value once you drive it off the lot. But there are ways you can get around that. So when getting out of these cars, you really got to ask yourself, is it worth it to you? And why do you want to get out the car that you have? Because if you're like me, there's no explanation that sometimes you just want something different. But that is not always a great thing to do, and it'll more times than not cost you thousands of dollars to get in and out of a car. But I'm gonna share with you the best ways that you can do it. But I gotta say this first. Johnny Taylor said, I believe, it's cheaper to keep her, and that goes true with cars as well. So the best thing you can do is hold on. So when you buy a car, you need to know what you want. But I know sometimes financial hardship can come along, and sometimes you just need to get out of a car because your situation can change within a matter of months or however the amount of time that has elapsed since you bought the car. So I'm gonna just get straight into it. So if you got a car and it's a little bit more than you can chew and you're trying to get out of it, the simple answer is you just got to pay off that negative equity. But if you're in a financial hardship, you might not be able to get out of that. So it's always good to have a cushion of cash, and this is why people pay down payments. They try to pay themselves down until if they ever reach that hardship, they can just get out the car with no issues. But if that's not an option right now, then I got some other things, but these other things are going to cost you. But generally having a wad of cash to put down up front or at the end, that'll save you. So even though you might be in the car already, but ways that I tend to get myself out of having to put a down payment down, I generally, and this is before I own the car, I'll look into ways to cut down the amount of money that I owe, and that's by ways of rebates and employee discounts. Because if you notice, I tend to stick around certain brands where I can get employee discounts on, and that's when I buy new. Used cars are different tactics, but new cars, and right now rebates are kind of rare, and employee discounts have been like discontinued across multiple manufacturers. But that's how I generally get into a car, and I have the option to get right back out of that car because those discounts normally take me to that point of that, not the 30% depreciation, but it gets me really close to that, to where I'm fine paying whatever is owed, like $1,000 just to get out that car. So with the used car, you have different options. Like you can't get a rebate on the used car. This is where negotiation comes into play, because you want to get in there as cheap as possible, and the dealership is a tug of war. They're trying to get as much profit, you're trying to save as much money. So you got to find a fine balance, and the dealership always wins. That's why they're in business, and we the consumers, we don't get to reap the benefits, because if they weren't reaping that benefit, they wouldn't be a business, they'd be a charity, and no dealership is a charity. Now you can't get lucky with certain deals on certain cars, but if you want a desirable car, like I have a friend that just reached out to me and is stuck with one of these high value marked up cars, and this is gonna be a big problem for some time to come, because it's gonna be near impossible. Like that's why I'm so against paying markup on cars. For me personally, how I get in and out of a car, if I'm paying markup, I'm stuck. I don't like being stuck into a car. It's just who I am. But these markups, don't pay this, and this is beforehand. I'm gonna get more into what you got to do afterwards. After you already got the car. What can I do? Help. Sad news is there's not a whole lot that can be done, but there are things that can be done. It's not going to be to your benefit, but we can mitigate some of that financial loss. So the thing that you can do, if you just want out of a car, you got to sell it privately. selling the car privately, you can get the maximum amount of dollars for your vehicle. And I know there's some tax breaks when you trade in the car for another one, and we'll talk about that later. But selling the car privately generally gets you the maximum amount of money in your pocket for the said vehicle that you bought. Hopefully it's something that somebody wants. Take good pictures advertising the car, make it very marketable, lay everything out there. It should sell quick depending on what it is. So if you don't know what your car's value is worth, there's a few online resources that can help with, like KBB, Kelley Blue Book. They can give you a value of the car for a private selling. And sometimes they're hit or miss with their values, like the trade-in value, depending on which dealerships you go to. Like my area of dealerships generally lowball the heck out of Kelley Blue Book prices. They said it's not even a good tool, but I noticed that the private selling is a good tool for them. And I also cross shop like a couple online car dealers like Carvana and Vroom. Vroom has been on the car values. I often check my car values, and Carvana used to give top dollar, but now since they've messed up with their bankruptcy thing, their values have sunk lower. But it depends on the car. Most of my cars don't price out well at Carvana, but you can price those out. So for me, trading into a dealership is easier because you don't have to deal with the tire kickers. But if you're a motivated seller, you got a motivated buyer, then that's all good. But I sold one car to Carvana, and it was a pretty seamless process, and it was really fast. They paid off my loan, and it was great. Another way that you can get out of a car, and this is not the greatest way, but you can do it, and it works over time. You can dump, if you have negative equity in that car, you can dump that into a lease. So you can get like a 3-year lease. The longer the lease, the better it will be for, depending on the amount of money you owe. I know some people that owe like 5-10 grand on these cars. That's probably what you're going to be at. And one time I traded in the vehicle, I was $10,000 underwater. But I found when I bought my Ford Flex, that car had $10,000 worth of rebates, and I used the employee discount on top of that to where it took care of all the negative equity, and I still came out paying less than MSRP. So that was a rare instance. So if you're trying to get a desirable car, because somebody hit me up, they want to get out of a BMW like a 440, 430 Grand Coupe, that car is not going to have them as much of a trade-in value because they wanted something like an M2. That will probably not work because the M2 is holding its value quite well, and it commands a hefty price. So you're just going to have to roll all of that in. If you're trying to like lower your cost, you want to get a cheap lease. But if you don't want a cheap car, then you're kind of stuck. So it's like, do you want this payment on this nice car that you picked out at one point? Or do you want to lower that payment? So you're going to have to roll over all the negative equity. Say if you want to roll over $5,000 worth of negative equity, you put it in on the lease. Hopefully you can get some rebates on a cheap lease that they have true advertisement on, where they're not pulling the wool over your eyes with all these fake numbers. Trade it in on that, and the amount of negative equity, you'll add that to the monthly payment. So if you owe $5,000 in negative equity, if it's a 36-month lease, you divide that $5,000 by those 36 months, and that'll be your additional extra payment. So if you get a $300 lease, whatever that number is on top of the $300 will be your new payment. Hopefully it's lower, and that way at the end of the lease, when you turn it in, you can walk away free and clear of that negative equity in 3 years. And the final way that you can get out of these cars, you can just roll over the negative equity. Now that is the worst option out of all of these, because interest rates are super high right now, and then you're going to be taxed on that negative equity. So if you owe 5, or if you're upside down 5 grand, you're going to pay these 6, 7, 8% interest rates on that, on top of the new car that you buy. And that's where cheaper to keeper just fits in. Like, unless you just went out and got a Corvette, but now you got quintuplets coming along, like you're just in bad shape right there. But hopefully you can get a good deal on that trade-in. But that's always the worst option, because you're just paying more for nothing. And that's why it's so important to do the work beforehand, up front, before you buy a car. Make sure it's something you're comfortable with. Don't go above your means, and just know what you want. So for me personally, I've done all of these methods, so I'm speaking from experience. So buying the car up front the right way is always good. But if you need to get out for financial reasons or whatever reason you want to get out of a car, you do have options, but those options are going to cost you. So that's why I say I'm hammering this down. Know what you want before you buy it. Otherwise, just hold on to the car and pay it down to whenever the value of the car is at least worth the trade-in or whatever you can sell it for. Don't be out here paying these insane markups on I see a Subaru Outback right there. So don't do something like that. The first car that came to my mind, first thing I saw. But it'll just leave you in a terrible financial situation. So that's how I've done it. I get in and out of my cars because of the way I buy them. Like, before I buy a car, I'm looking at selling it. So that's how I'm able to do this so frequently. Like, most people can't do that because it's a hard thing to do. And it just takes a little bit of research. Like, buying used cars is better because they've already taken a depreciation hit. So it's easier to get out of a used car that's already taken a hit. Like my M2, that car I'm sitting nice on with the value. So it's like close to what I paid for it already with the taxes added on to it. This Integra, it's a worst case. I bought this new with no discounts on it. So I'm in a uglier situation in the Integra, but there's ways out of it if I wanted to get out of it. So that's my personal experience. Hopefully it was able to help somebody out there. So if you got any other methods that, especially ones that don't hurt as bad, but I don't think there are, drop a comment down below, share your experiences. We're gonna talk about it. So I'm gonna leave you all with that. Q checking out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, browse the channel, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out.